What's up, baseball fans, and what's up, Met fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets at Rob and another MLB Free Agent Frenzy a day before Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving Eve to everybody. Hopefully everybody is staying safe and getting ready to eat and stuff their faces tomorrow. Hopefully we actually get some news the rest of the week. Hopefully something tonight. We shall see. There's still a lot of rumors out there. There was a couple of moves that were made. One involving a former Mets reliever. We'll get into that in a little bit. But once again, guys, don't forget to hit on that like button and to also subscribe to the channel. If you already subscribed to the channel and you're new to the channel, say what's up in the chat. Do not be shy, guys. We're going to be here all off season long, giving all the Mets rumors, of course, but of course, baseball rumors all around Major League Baseball, so we can get something going here. We're about less than 2 weeks away until the winter meetings, and it's looking more and more like free agency and trades are going to be leading up to the winter meetings, probably more into the winter meetings. And honestly, I think this is what baseball should do more. And I put up a poll over there. Do you think Major League Baseball should do something to change the slow pace of free agency? I said yes. I said in my last stream that I think qualifying offers, Rule 5 protected players, and non-tender deadlines should all be stretched out a little bit further into the later, like around this time until November, from the day the World Series ends until basically sometime this week, where those things can happen so they can stretch out that period, give players more time to accept qualifying offers or deny qualifying offers, and teams can have more chances of non-tendering players, and also the Rule 5 protection deadline can get a little bit longer, and it gives us more time to figure out what each team should be doing between free agency and trades. And of course, trades can happen, but free agency shouldn't start until the winter meetings. I think if you do the winter meetings from early December until, it's like a week of winter meetings, they should start it from there with the winter meetings and then go until the season, but they have to sign within a month's period. I think that's the way where you get a lot of signings, you get a lot of news, and it should be something like that. I think there should be a deadline where everybody knows their roster. Again, free agency should be a month long. If you wanted to make it the month of December, make it the month of December. But that's something that should be easily done. Like you see the NFL and you see the NBA. As soon as there's a free agency period, guys sign like crazy. It's like a week of madness. And I understand you can't make it a week because there's so many more players involved that are free agents. In the NFL, you have a lot of free agents, but the big free agents are usually signed within a week and a half. And I think that's something that Major League Baseball has to look at, because you can't have all these free agents dragging on from the moment the World Series ends, and it's already almost a month already since the World Series is over, and nothing's happened. You heard rumors here and there. Yeah, there's been a couple of small trades and one signing that was on the top 20 list, which was Tyler Anderson to the Angels. And we'll get what the Angels are doing. And the Angels are making moves. The Angels are not playing right now. And that's something that we have to talk about regarding them for all the Angel fans that might be checking out the stream later or in the stream right now. So with that said, if you haven't voted on the poll, please do. Again, I think there should be a month's period where free agents should be able to sign, and that's a deadline. They should do that. So by the time January comes, most teams know what their roster looks like free agency-wise. So January can be all about making trades. And I think if you put the month of November, when the World Series ends, until the winter meetings, so that's like a month span, to do the Rule 5 protective players, the non-tender deadline, and the qualifying offer deadline, it should all be stretched out within a month. Give players and teams a month for all of that from November until the winter meetings, which is a little bit over a month. And then as soon as the winter meetings hits, that's when free agency should start. And then from the day of the winter meetings until the last day of December should be the time period where all free agents should sign. There should be a deadline for that. And then January, obviously you can trade from the day after the World Series until whenever. But the trade should be able to happen. But at least you give the teams ways to start talking about trades so they know what they might need. If they already made a trade, so, all right, this is what we need in free agency. So it gives all the teams and players a chance to talk to other teams, but they officially can't sign. You already hear about the NBA and the NFL talking to players that they're not supposed to talk to players, but they are. That's what should happen in Major League Baseball. Get the rumors going so when the winter meetings come around, players know the teams that are interested. They might know of some offers, and then they can decide it in the winter meetings and the month of December where they should go. And I think that's what makes sense, where you can have people interested in November. Like, all right, we know in November we got the Rule 5 protected players, we got the non-tender, and we got the qualifying offer deadline. Everybody, all the baseball fans would know November is that month. December is free agent signing period from the day of the winter meetings until the last day of December. Everybody knows every player has to sign. And then in January is this basically the start up, the anticipation, the hype of getting to spring training in February. That's what January should be. January shouldn't be, wow, Aaron Judge haven't signed yet. Why is Jacob deGrom waiting so long? Because everybody believes that Trey Turner is the best shortstop available. Well, Correa, Bogarts, and Swanson are not going to sign until Trey Turner signs, because it's a ripple effect, right? That's the problem that Major League Baseball has. Those same position players are waiting for the biggest possible contract, which everybody thinks Turner's going to get the biggest amount. So they're waiting to see, but like, hey, look what Trey Turner got. I'm the same age as him. I think I deserve something similar or a little bit lower, and that's something that is understandable. No, Ken, I'm not talking about January. I'm talking about January should be the period where most teams should already have their roster set, or for the most part know where they're going. The end of December is when free agency should stop. From the winter meetings until the end of December is when free agency, everybody has to sign as a free agent. There's no ifs or buts about it. And if they don't sign, there should be a penalty, there should be a penalty for that player not signing, or at least a penalty where the agent should be a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, there should be some type of penalty for the player. Like, it shouldn't just be, oh, well, the players should be waiting around, because I don't think it benefits the player, and I don't think it benefits the teams at all, because the team doesn't know their roster, and the player, look what happened to the shortstops last year. How many players took 1-year deals, right? Like Carlos Correa. Nobody thought Carlos Correa was going to take basically a 1-year deal, right? Because that's what he took. It makes no sense, right? It's stupid. And I don't understand the fact that we're waiting for players and teams to go around the league and to go to the teams that might be interested in them. And it shouldn't take that long. In 1 week's time, you should be able to go to every team that is showing interest. Like Aaron Judge, there's about, some people say 4 teams, right? The Giants, the Dodgers, the Yankees. And I think the Mets are actually going to have a little bit of a moment with Aaron Judge, since, the Yankees decided to take that gentleman's agreement and shove it up Met fans' asses, because that's exactly what they're doing, right? We heard the Yankees are looking at X for DeGrom's medicals, and they also talked to Nimo's agent, Scott Boras. So if the Yankees are if Hal Steinbrenner is shaking Steve Cohen's hand in the gentleman's agreement to not talk to their own players, well, that already went out the window. So for the Mets, if I'm the Mets, I think Steve Cohen should offer him a huge deal. Not enough for him to take it, but just to piss off the Yankees a little bit, because it's actually stupid. And it comes down back to the fact that for Aaron Judge, the Giants the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Mets. You know the 4 teams that are most likely interested in Aaron Judge, right? There might be another team that are sitting in the weeds a little bit, but in a week, he should be able to meet all those teams. So when you meet all those teams, shouldn't they all have contract offers waiting for him? And then he should have all those contract offers. If he thinks he can get more, go back to the other teams. Can you do better than this offer? Don't show the team that gave him the biggest offer, but show that the teams that don't have the biggest offer and say, can you make a bigger offer? If they can't, obviously take that deal. Like, I just don't understand why it's so hard. Like, they make this into rocket science when it's basically common sense. Everybody knows Aaron Judge is going to get between $350 and $400 million. There's no confusion there for any team. I don't understand why it's harder. And if a team wants to step up and make a move already, like, there should be no reason why Trey Turner isn't a Met. Steve Cohen needs to go, and Epler go with Trey Turner and go, listen, we know you're probably going to get around $250 million. We're willing to give you a 7-year, $250 million deal. What are we doing here? Like, stop playing these games where you're going to get other teams involved. Don't give other teams a chance to get something done or have a chance of meeting this player. Don't give that player the option. Be like, hey, we think this is a really good offer. If you can do better, come back to us and we can have a conversation. But let's get the ball rolling here. The same thing goes for Jacob deGrom. The same thing that goes for Brandon Nimo. Because what's going to happen with some teams is that they're going to be playing the wait game, and then the one player that they really wanted signs with another team because you were playing the waiting game. And that's something the Mets cannot do. And I think that's going to be the biggest problem with a lot of teams this year, especially the teams that are going for Aaron Judge, the teams that are going for Brandon Nimo, the teams that are going for Jacob deGrom, and other big free agents that are on the market. That's something that I do believe is going to be the biggest problem with most of these teams. And what I don't like is the fact that the same problems are persistent every single year. There's going to be one player that waited too long and is probably a Boris client, is going to be taking his free agency into mid-January. And at that point, most teams already know their roster. They already made their signings. Some already made their trades. And the teams that were interested in that player don't need him anymore. And now this poor guy is going to, I'm not going to say poor guy, but that one free agent is going to take a 1-year deal and bet on himself. There should be no free agent, especially in the top 20, that takes a 1-year deal. I'm sorry. Even, Michael Conforto is a different story because he didn't play last year. He was injured and he had a bad 2021. So I could see Michael Conforto taking a 1-year deal. But other than that, players that played last year and that are in the top 20 free agents on MLB's top 20, they should all sign multi-year deals. Like, this shouldn't be that hard, and they're making it more harder than it actually is. And then Major League Baseball wonders why fans get mad. And then not only that you're changing a lot of the rules, you're making free agency basically a waste of time for the first month after the All-Star break. I mean, after the World Series. It makes no sense. So with that said, there is a couple of moves that went down. Let's see. Hold on one second. Let me just get everything. So the former reliever for the Mets, Joely Rodriguez, has signed a 1-year contract with the Boston Red Sox with a club option for 2024. So that is the lefty that the Mets had. That was the sole lefty in that that bullpen for basically the entire year, is now with the Boston Red Sox. What else went down? I know there was something else. What the hell was it? God damn it. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Hold on, guys. There was something else. All right. So the Mets signed right-handed pitcher Denny Reyes and left-handed pitcher Zach Muckenhirn to a minor league deal with invites to spring training. Muckenhirn, 27, had a 3.11 ERA and a 1.35 WHIP as a reliever in AAA, and Reyes is 26, had a 2.35 ERA and 7 2/3 innings last year in Major League Baseball. So 2 minor league signings, again, more pitching depth for the New York Mets. And as you've seen with the trade with the Marlins, with Eliza Hernandez and Breckham, is two guys that are also pitching depth. The Mets are getting the pitching depth early, which is never a bad thing when it comes to any baseball team. You always need starting pitching depth. You always need reliever depth in your minors because you just never know. And again, people think, oh, it's a stupid trade, it's a waste trade. But you know what? When you get to July and you got two rotation starters down and you got a bullpen arm down, those depth pieces are going to be important because you still have to fill up those spots, and you can't have dumpster fires that you don't trust or you don't know of going into your rotation or going into your bullpen and basically pray that these guys actually pitch well or pitch okay. Again, Eliza Hernandez is not a guy that is going to be centering your rotation, but he is a guy that if somebody, if a guy like Peterson or McGill struggle, Eliza Hernandez can get the opportunity. He does have a lively arm. You just never know. And Brigham had a really good couple of years with the Miami Marlins, and I think is already going to be a mainstay in the Mets bullpen. Here he has under a 3 ERA. He's a pretty good pitcher, so that's something that you have to look at as well. And these two guys, Muckenhern and Reyes, one's a lefty, one's a righty. One had a good season in the minors in AAA, and Reyes pitched in the majors for about 8 innings, but also has good minor league numbers. So that's something that, is pitching depth, and you just never know. And again, I honestly believe that Lugo and Ottavino are not going to be with the Mets, Ken. I think the Mets are revamping the entire bullpen. I think you're going to see all new names there. Chafin is still out there. Obviously, there's other guys that are available. I think the Mets are going to make a trade for a reliever, a really good reliever. There's options out there for the Mets. I honestly think, here's the problem with people that think, look, Lugo had a good year or a decent year, but Lugo every year now has started to give up more home runs in big spots. And that's alarming to me. But again, I still think that Ottavino could be an option for the Mets. But I think somebody's going to give Lugo a chance to start, and that's no contest for the Mets. The Mets are not going to the Mets are not going to give that promise to Lugo. Another team might see Lugo as a starter. And again, I don't think Lugo can pitch more than 5 innings, and him recover after 5 days after throwing 90 pitches, I don't know if he can do that with his elbow. Remember, he still has that partial tear of his UCL. That's something that I think that teams will worry about. But there's going to be a team out there that's going to offer him or promise him a starter role, and Lugo's going to take that. Lugo's been the starter since the day he came up as a Met. The Mets just needed him in the bullpen. And, that probably hurt him contract-wise, but he's going to take a starter position. I can assure you that. He is not going to take a bullpen role. Then he might as well just stay with the Mets. And that's something that I don't think Lugo wants to be in the bullpen, because he knows that if he stays with the Mets, he's going to be in the bullpen. Lugo is going to get a starting position promise from some team. And that's why Lugo is gone. Not that the Mets don't want Lugo back, but I think Lugo is looking to start. And exactly, Ken, a team like Texas could see Lugo, who got really good stuff. Again, Lugo can throw 96, 97, 98 miles an hour, but as a starter, he was throwing 93, 94 as a starter. You remember when the Mets gave him them chances a couple of times, he wasn't throwing as hard, because you don't expect a pitcher to come in to throw 5-6 innings and throw 96, 97 like he's throwing out of the bullpen for 1 inning or possibly 2. That's something that with Lugo, I think, hurts him as a starter. Again, he might believe he's a starter. I don't think he is. But there's going to be a team like Texas. There's going to be a team like Philly. There's going to be a team like many other teams around the league that are looking for back into the rotation starters that they believe that can be a starter, and Lugo is one of those guys. But again, Lugo can be that guy that they might promise him a starting role, but he might not be good, and they might throw him in the bullpen anyway, which I think is better for any team, because I think Lugo is a reliever, late inning reliever. But that's the reason why I think the Mets are going to lose Lugo. And I can't, as a Met fan, say to promise Lugo a starting role, because that doesn't fit what the Mets need, right? The Mets need bullpen arms. Lugo is a better bullpen arm for the Mets than he is a starter. I don't think it makes sense. I can't put Lugo over Peterson or McGill in the starting rotation. It makes no sense for the Mets. Ottavino, on the other hand, I would like the Mets to sign Ottavino. That's something that I think is still possible, but I don't know if the Mets trust him enough to give him a 2-year deal, which he could get on the open market. That's something that, like I said, Ottavino didn't have a good year the year before the Mets signed him. He had basically one of his best years of his career as a New York Met last year. Can he replicate that? I don't think so, because I don't think most relievers don't replicate the great years that they had. And that's what worries me too, because we can get out of, great. But again, any like I said, bullpens are volatile. One year they could be great, and you could bring back the same bullpen, and they're not as good. Like, you expect a little bit of a downfall from every reliever you bring in that was good. And it might be a reliever that you bring in that didn't look good last year, that had a 4 ERA, and now is pitching close to under a 3 or a little above 3 ERA. You just don't know. And that's the thing that I think most fans, everybody's like, oh, we got to get Chafin. We got to get this guy. We got to look at the year he had last year. But you can't just look at last year. You have to look at it like, all right, he pitched to a 2.3 ERA in the bullpen last year. You can't just assume that he's going to have that year in 2023. You just can't do that. Because, again, Chafin was in the AL Central last year. You know how bad the AL Central was? He played 19 games against all of those teams in the AL Central. So his ERA is going to be deflated a lot more because he faced one of the worst divisions in all of baseball last year a lot. Not saying that he's still not a good pitcher, but you can't look at his 2.35 ERA and expect to come to the NL East where there's better teams and expect them to pitch that way. He might have a 3 ERA, which is still pretty good, but don't expect him to be that. And people expect them to be that, and then they get shocked every year when bullpen arms that were good the year before are not as good as they were. Well, no, Ken, I'm just saying the fact that people look too much into the fact that, oh, he was a good pitcher last year, so just get him. Like, it doesn't work like that, because we got players many times. Like, look at Joely Rodriguez. He had a good year. He had a bad year for the Yankees, right? When the Mets traded for him, but he was good against lefties. He wasn't as good with the Mets as he was with the Yankees against left-handers. He gave up a lot of big home runs against left-handers. He didn't really do that a lot with the Yankees. So we couldn't look at that either, right? The same thing with Ottavino. Ottavino didn't have a good year with the Red Sox last year, right? And prior to that, he had a bad year with the Yankees, but he had a great year with the Mets. You can't determine that's going to be a good sign-in. Yeah, the name might say, and look at the year he had last year, and then he can have a 4.5 ERA next year, and then that sign-in's shit. And that's something that we have to worry about as well. So, Urza, I just talked about it. Again, it's more depth pieces that the Mets got. It's nothing to write home about. They have nice ERAs. But again, you just don't know. What do you know, right? So we did that. And the one trade that went down was Hunter Renfroe just got traded to the Angels from the Brewers for a couple of players, a couple of minor leaguers. So Renfroe, with some Mets fans' door, would be a nice pickup as a DH. Behind Pete Alonso is now with the Angels. So the Angels have signed, they're just talking about it on Baseball Night in New York, signed Tyler Anderson to help their rotation. And now Hunter Renfroe, you put him with Ohtani and Trout now, that's dangerous. And then they also traded for Gio Urshela. They're making moves. And that's a pretty damn good, I think is a very good trade for the Angels. And the Angels are going for it. And it looks like that. And there is also news about, again, I don't trust Andy Martino at all, but it does seem like more and more likely that the Mets could actually re-sign Jacob deGrom and sign Kodai Senga. And I think that's a perfect to it, bringing back deGrom and bringing Kodai Senga from Japan into the Mets rotation. I like that rotation a lot already. Of course, with Carrasco, and then you make McGill and Peterson fight it out, and whoever loses that is your long man in the bullpen, and also spots starting for like double headers, and if somebody gets injured as well. So for the rotation, if next week the Mets sign Kodai Senga and Jacob deGrom, I'm actually pretty happy with that. I'm actually happy with that. That's not bad at all. Now, again, I know some people would really like Carlos Rodon, but if you get Jacob deGrom, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to get Rodon. If you sign Jacob deGrom, you're probably not going to sign Carlos Rodon, even though it's still a possibility if the Mets lose out on Senga. But Senga, excuse me. But what is very interesting is the fact that now there's reports that the Texas Rangers are very focused on Carlos Rodon. And that's something that is a little shocking. And here's the reason why I think that's the case. Because I think Jacob deGrom went to the Texas Rangers with the offer that the Mets offer. Because remember, we don't know the offer that the Mets have on the table for Jacob deGrom. I believe they already showed Jacob deGrom that offer. I think Jacob deGrom is going around the league, showing that offer to the other teams, and teams are backing off. And that's including the Texas Rangers, who were said to be the favorites for Jacob deGrom, right? That was the report from Andy Martino over and over again, that the Rangers are very interested in Jacob deGrom. Well, I don't think whatever the Mets offer Jacob deGrom, any other team is going to either come close to that. And if they match it, it's already been reported that Jacob deGrom will probably just likely be with the Mets if the deal is close enough. And I don't take any nervous feeling or reaction to the Yankees looking at Jacob deGrom's medicals. I just think they're doing their due diligence to actually excite their fans a little bit. They're like, oh, look what we can do. I don't think the Yankees are doing much, to be honest with you. I think somehow, some way, they're going to find a way to re-sign Aaron Judge, and basically that's it. And a little small moves. Other than that, I don't think it's going to be much. I don't think it's much to think about. Again, I don't think Jacob deGrom is just going to go to the, stay in New York and go to the Yankees. Trust me, I don't think that makes much sense at all. If he's staying in New York, he's going to be a New York Met. And that's something that you have to think about. But, the biggest problem with the Mets this year was offense, right? When it came later and later into the year, their offense got a little bit worse month by month, right? The runs scored went down the full run. The team average went down about 10 points. RBIs went down. Runs scored, batting average, walks, strikeouts went up. Like, there was so much that went worse when the year went on, and it was obvious that the bunching hits together to score runs was fun, because when your team gets 4, 5, 6 hits in a row and scores 2 or 3 runs because of those hits, it's a lot of fun instead of just a home run. But it turned out when guys started to get cold and cool off a little bit, now the middle of that lineup, you'll have one guy that's hot, but 2 guys that are cold. And that guy used to get on base that was hot, and the guys that are cold couldn't hit a water out of a boat. Like, that's how bad it got. So to have that as the main focus of the team, and you had to rely on 3, 4, 5 hits in a row to score runs, and the only chance you basically had of somebody hitting a home run out of the ballpark with runners on was Pete Alonso, and that was what you hoped for every time Pete Alonso came up. It became a problem because Pete Alonso was pressing, clearly. He was trying to hit a home run every time there was a big spot and runners on. And then when you expect after Pete Alonso that Mark Canha to hit a home run or Jeff McNeil to hit a home run, it wasn't happening. And that was the biggest problem with this team. And that's why when all we're hearing is about pitching for the Mets. Yet I want to hear hitting for the Mets. I know there's some talk that the Mets are still trying to bring back Brandon Nimo. We'll see what happens. There's so much competition for Brandon Nimo. I think his price is going to be jacked up to the point where I don't know if the Mets are willing to go that high. And I think it's insane for the Mets to go past anywhere near 125. And I think the Mets might actually do that, but I think at some point they're going to be out of the price range for Brandon Nimo. So where do the Mets go from there? I said Trey Turner. I think Trey Turner, I'm going all out for him. I think that is something that can make your lineup dynamic. You get your leadoff hitter. You get a dynamic stolen base guy. You get a guy that can bat 280 who can knock you around the same amount of home runs that Brandon Nimo can. And he's versatile. He can play second base. He can play center field. And it gives you options to do something else going forward in free agency or trades. And if the Mets lose out on Trey Turner, I don't think they're going to be in on Correa or Bogarts or Swanson because they're more guys that can play third, that can maybe play second, but are mostly shortstops. And now where the Mets are going to go. And that's why I think the Mets have to focus in on Trey Turner, because if they take their time with Trey Turner and Brandon Nimo goes somewhere else, well, now the Mets are in a real bind now, because now they're going to have to find a defensive center fielder, and that's not going to be as good as Brandon Nimo. You know, would I be mad the Mets bring back Brandon Nimo? Absolutely not. But will Brandon Nimo stop the Mets if the Mets give him 6 years, 150, or 7 years, 150, and now that might take him out of the running for something else? Well, now we're bringing back the same team. So we bring back DeGrom, we bring back Nimo, we sign Kodai Senga, and basically all you did was replace Walker with Senga, and you basically bring in the same old Mets team from 2022 back with the Mets, and you might have different arms in the bullpen. Is that going to solve the problems? Again, we talk about the Yankees bringing back the same team year after year after year with similar results, right? Yankees can't get over the hump, right? They can't beat the Astros. They lost in the wild card round. They lost in the divisional round. They lost in the ALCS. It seems like a trend, right? If you bring back almost the same team, why do you expect different results? I just don't get that. I don't think it works. Again, if you bring back Brandon Nimo, can you still bring back Trey Turner? Can he bring Trey Turner in? Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. But will the Mets do that? Because I think it's either Trey Turner or Brandon Nimo. It's not going to be both. So it's up to you to decide, who do you want more? Do you want Brandon Nimo or do you want Trey Turner? I don't think it's even a chance that anybody should pick Brandon Nimo over Trey Turner, because that's idiotic. And I don't think it makes sense at all if you have to choose. And if you bring back Brandon Nimo and it stops you from getting Trey Turner, it's a bad move. Because what else are you doing? Like, what else is out there for the Mets to get via free agency? Other than you got Brandon Nimo back, congratulations. Now we got Brandon Nimo back. Okay, we got a leadoff hitter back. That's fine. You know, he's been pretty decent for center field, but he's the same player that's been often injured on your team. Now you just gave $150 million to. Now what? Now Trey Turner's out of the mix. Muttley, Nimo is never going to be Daniel Murphy. All right. I mean, I think Nimmo's a better player than Daniel Murphy. Daniel Murphy just had one amazing playoff run and was like a Jeff McNeil type of hitter. Nimmo's not Jeff McNeil. Nimo doesn't hit for a 300, right? Nimo is a 260 hitter. All right. So people got to get that out of their heads that Nimo's all of a sudden going to be a 300 hitter. He's never that player. You know, he'll have his batting average up the first couple of months to 270. He'll touch 280, and then the last few months it'll drop down to 260 like always. That's where Brandon Nimo is. And that's why I don't like Brandon Nimo. Like, everybody wants Jeff McNeil up in the order, right? They wanted him behind Jeff McNeil. You can't bat him anywhere between 1 through 4 if it's Nimo, Marte, Alonso, Lindor, right? Those four are basically stuck in that order. If Brandon Nimo is gone, Jeff McNeil should be a leadoff hitter automatically, unless you get Trey Turner. But Jeff McNeil is in the same situation yet again, right? If you get Trey Turner or Brandon Nimo, McNeil is going to be, if you do get a DH that can actually protect Pete Alonso, you have Jeff McNeil batting 6th, maybe 7th. So you're back to that same situation again. Even though Jeff McNeil said that he likes batting late, deeper in the order because he likes it there. But you can bat Jeff McNeil 9th, right? That would be a nice number 9 spot. We'll see. Mudley, I'm not eager to quit on Nimo, but we're acting like Nimo was a 300 hitter in his career. He's never hit that milestone. The best he hit was 274 in his career. And that was a couple of years ago when he played less than 100 games. So, number one, Nimo is injury prone, right? Miraculously, in his contract year, all of a sudden he wasn't injured, which, people want to talk about Aaron Judge with that. And Ken is one of those guys that talked about Aaron Judge being injured often. Well, he's injured just as often as Brandon Nimo, right? Brandon Nimo played 150 games this year. The last time he did that was his first year where he actually was a starter. After that, he played less than 100 games every year prior to this year. So we just assume with Nimo getting older, he's going to stay healthy. And he's never done that in his career except for his contract year, which is not shocking because that's what players do, right? All of a sudden, that nagging injury that he would stay out 2 weeks, he won't do that now in his contract year. But people don't want to talk about that when Nimo is often injured in his career. Now, everybody wants to fall over themselves for Brandon Nimo when Nimo is a 260 hitter and great. He's great at walking. He's a really good leadoff hitter. I'm not going to say he's not. But once again, so now he's reaching his prime. So all of a sudden, 2019, he wasn't reaching his prime. 2021, he wasn't reaching his prime. Again, you just talked about, Ken, a guy who's often injured in Aaron Judge, who, let's be honest, it's not like Nimo's 25 years old, right? What is he going to be, 29? So he's about a year and a half apart from Aaron Judge. So Brandon Nimo is all of a sudden going to stay healthy in his career, getting older, but Aaron Judge is not. You see, you can't have that. You can't be hypocritical on those two fronts, right? Brandon Nimo has been often injured just like Aaron Judge. Now, I'm not saying to give Aaron Judge $350 million. I think that's crazy because I do think that after the 5th year, it's going to be a disaster. But an often injured Nimo, how can you expect him to be healthy every single year and give you 145 to 150 games? But Ken, you can't say that because we don't have a player of his size to relate to. So we don't know that. Well, Brandon Nimo looks like every other skinny-ass center fielder. But I can't compare him. Can I compare him to George Springer, who is often injured? Could we do that? I think a lot of people just assume that Nimo's going to be healthy, and then as soon as he gets hurt, we gave him this contract. We'll be the first ones to kill him, right? Ken, you are. Ken, I don't know. Again, YouTube does this a lot with some comments. Again, it's been blocking mine as well. I know I've seen everybody. I didn't say hi to everybody, but once again, hi. I just getting into the rants with this stuff as well. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the Mets hot stove right now about the Mets and Kodai Senga I met last week and all that stuff. I know, Ken, you keep me on my feet. I know. Don't worry about it. But Ramon with Benintendi. Again, Benintendi's a corner outfielder. He's not a center fielder. So that's something that the Mets, I guess, could do to pivot from Brandon Nimo. Again, Andrew Benintendi, is a 290, 300 hitter. So, but he got injured last year. So, again, none of these are perfect options. But if you're going to tell me that all of a sudden Brandon Nimo, who people thought when the season ended, he was going to get between $95 and $105 million. Now they're projecting him to get $150 million. It's okay for Brandon Nimo to get $150 million. I'm sorry. Brandon Nimo has been healthy 1 year of his career. Well, technically 2 out of the last 6 years. That's something you want to give $150 million to? Again, I don't think Brandon Nimo is going to get better defensively. I think you're going to see what he is. He's a guy that has to play deep because he can't play back on balls. So he can't. A lot of balls are going to fall in. He has no arm. That's not debatable. So that same runner to go to the first to third is not getting thrown out by Nimo. That same runner that's going second to home on a base hit is scoring. Like, that's something. That's a problem. But Muttley, you see, it's not about the market. That's where you're not understanding me. The problem is that because Brandon Nimo is the only center fielder that is any good on the market, now you have to pay a premium because other teams are involved in him. If the Mets believe that Brandon Nimo is the future of their center field, why didn't you give him a contract before the year instead of waiting until free agency, where you probably could have signed him in less than $100 million, where you could have gave him 6 years, $95 million, and he probably would have took it before he changed agents. But no, the Mets don't believe he is the center fielder of the future, because the same way they offered Michael Conforto a contract before the 2021 season, they didn't offer Brandon Nimo a contract. Why is that? Maybe you have to think about that. But there is no other market. That's the whole point. He's the only center fielder on the market, and there's a lot of teams after a center fielder. That's the only reason why the price is going up. It's not because he's worth $150 million. Again, I'm telling you guys right now, if you give Brandon Nimo $150 million, you're going to regret that contract. I'm telling you right now. Because the same people that want Brandon Nimo back are going to be the same people who are going to complain when he is cold for a month and he is not the greatest center fielder, and now you're going to have the biggest issue. But Muttley, everybody is going to get paid because of the market. The whole point is that all right, Muttley, do you think Brandon Nimo is worth $150 million? That's all you have to say. No, that's what you don't understand. Just because the market is bare and Nimmo's the only center fielder out there doesn't mean Nimo is worth $150 million as a player. Not what the market says, right? We talk about this all the time. Max Scherzer's contract was market value, right? But was Scherzer worth $43 million, right? Jacob deGrom, if healthy, is he worth $44 million? Probably, if healthy, right? So you're taking a risk on that. Brandon Nimo, but you just made my point. You just said maybe. You know why you say maybe? Because you're not 100% sure giving Nimo $150 million and he'll be worth it for 6 years. It's just not going to happen. And that's the whole point, right? Trey Turner is probably going to get $250 million. You're going to tell me, is Trey Turner worth it? I think there's a better chance that Trey Turner is going to be worth his contract more than Brandon Nimo is going to be worth his contract. That's the whole point. If you can't tell me, if you can't 100% say, yes, Nimmo's worth $150 million, then why are you giving it to him? Just because the market says so? That doesn't make sense. Well, Muttley, yeah, based on last season. But now we're going to go based on last season. Then you know what? The Mets just sign Aaron Judge then, if that's the case, right? If you think Nimo is going to play 145 games to 140 to 150 games for the next 2 to 3 years, then fine. But the reason why everybody's looking at Nimmo's numbers and like, oh, look what he did this year. Well, he finally stayed healthy. So now we just assume that Brandon Nimo is going to be healthy. And that's the other problem. And then we talked about this with Max Scherzer as well when we signed him. Look, a lot of people like that. I was not mad. I was shocked that the Mets signed Max Scherzer. But before all the excitement, when the excitement wears off, here we started to talk about that. We started to talk about Max Scherzer's age and health. And that's the same thing we're talking about now with Jacob deGrom. I agree with you, Muttley. You can't guarantee anyone staying healthy. But this is the first year where Brandon Nimo has stayed healthy since 2018. Right? That's a fact, right? Go look at his games he played. He hasn't played 100 games since last year. And there is no coincidence that all of a sudden in his contract year, Nimo all of a sudden didn't have nagging injuries that kept him out prior seasons for a week or two, but now all of a sudden he plays through them. Why would he play through them once he gets a contract? As soon as that nagging injury comes, he's out a week. Can you rely on that? Or would you rather have Trey Turner, who is an actual leadoff hitter, who can steal bases, who hits 20 points higher than Brandon Nimo, who does basically all the same things as Brandon Nimo, doesn't strike out as much as Brandon Nimo, yet Muttley, I didn't say he's a slacker. What I'm saying is that Nimo, throughout his career, has nagging injuries and stayed out of games because of nagging injuries, and then was injured and on the IL as well. But this year, he played 150 games. Like, you can't just take that out of the whole picture. Like, people just look at his numbers. Oh, look at Brandon Nimo. If you look at 1 year and give him that type of money, you're an idiot. Just that simple. The same thing goes for Aaron Judge. If you look at Aaron Judge last year only, I'm not talking about nagging. I'm talking about the nagging injuries with, he has a little hamstring pull. Oh, you gotta put him out for a week, right? All of a sudden he don't have no hamstring problems. All of a sudden he doesn't have that nerve issue that I had in 2021. We never heard of that this year. Why is that? That's the problem. That's the issue. Again, if you think Brandon Nimo was worth $150 million, then I don't want to hear. And trust me, I will come back at you guys, just like I called myself out with Jeff McNeil, right? This is the same people that when he's struggling in the month of June and he's terrible are going to complain about the contract. And that goes for Muttley. You'll be one of those guys, because the same people that wanted certain players are complaining about the contracts now, right? It's the same issue that we're all going to have. Muttley, no. If I had to choose, I'd rather pay Jacob deGrom. I'm sorry. I don't think Brandon Nimo is worth $150 million. I'm sorry. Just because the market says so is not the reason why to pay Brandon Nimo, who's not worth $150 million. At best, he's a $100 million player. At best. Because he's not a great center fielder. And he is not the player that everybody just makes him out to be. I'm sorry. It should take you 6 years to finally play 150 games. And it's not like he wasn't the starting center fielder the last couple of years, because he was. Well, Muttley, Jacob deGrom has been less injured than Brandon Nimo. Only the last year has Jacob deGrom been injured. It's not like he's been injured every year of his career. He's pitched 28 to 30 games every year of his career, except for last year and the year before, which is in total 1 year. The second half of 2021 and the first half of 2022. Ken, that's where I agree with you with. I think the garbage American League helped Aaron Judge inflated numbers, in my opinion. Again, I think Aaron Judge can hit 40 home runs. I don't think that's an issue. Yes, Muttley, because Jacob deGrom, thank you, Ken, has won 2 Cy Youngs. What does Brandon Nimo has done? Nimo never wins a Gold Gloves. He barely hits over 260. When he's cold, he strikes out and becomes the exact opposite player that you need a leadoff hitter to be. I'm sorry, but I will tell you this right now. Jacob deGrom will be more healthy in the next 4 years than Brandon Nimo, and that's a fact. I'm sorry. Look at the amount of games Jacob deGrom has pitched in his career. It's been, on average, 26 games. And most pitchers, starting pitchers, if they go a full season, pitch around 30 to 32 starts. So on average, he pitched 26 games. Nimo has averaged 94 games in his career. And Brandon Nimo and Jacob deGrom played around the same amount of years. Muttley, but that's not the point. The point is when Jacob deGrom is cold, he'll give you 6 innings and 2 runs, which is an average start nowadays, right? When Nimo goes cold, he's a waste of a player. That's how bad he is. Well, I don't agree with that because all the injuries here's the problem. Jacob deGrom pitches every 5th day. Brandon Nimo needs to play every day for this Mets team to be good. He's done it once. And now you're going to give him $150 million. And Lewis, that's the other problem too. Nimo, your leadoff hitter, and this is why I wanted Marte to be the leadoff hitter, not Brandon Nimo. Because Brandon Nimo cannot steal a base. So when he gets on base, he's fast as hell. I wish he can learn to steal 10 bases a year. He's one of the fastest players on the base path in Nimo, but he doesn't use that speed. And that's why making him and being a leadoff hitter, once he gets on base, he can't steal bases. Now, we can critique Nimo until the cows come home. Would I be mad if Brandon Nimo re-signs with the Mets? No. But if it stops us from getting the hitter that the Mets actually need, that's a problem. And that's what I worry about with the Mets. Yes, Muttley, I get that. But Jacob deGrom injured didn't hurt the Mets last year, right? Because we had a better first half than we had the second half. But if deGrom is healthy, he will help this team a hell of a lot more than Brandon Nimo can. And I do believe that Nimo is going to get hurt more often than Jacob deGrom will. Because Nimo, in his career, has nagging injuries that keeps him out of games. Just because he was all of a sudden not complaining about nagging injuries doesn't mean that he didn't have any. So that means he could play through it, but didn't want to prior to his contract year. Yeah, I don't think so at all. I'm sorry. If I have to choose Brandon Nimo over Jacob deGrom, I'm sorry. So we're gonna replace Jacob deGrom with who? Right? We have opportunities to get a leadoff hitter. We can get Trey Turner. We can use Marte in a leadoff spot. We can use Jeff McNeil in the leadoff spot. You can't replace Jacob deGrom. Just that simple. And let's be honest. Even if Jacob deGrom is not Cy Young Jacob deGrom, he's better than 99% of all of baseball when healthy. I'm sorry. I cannot give Nimo $150 million and then act like that's not going to matter. But it's not, again, nagging injuries is not a slacker. Go through his injuries. Hamstrings, neck issue, right? Those are issues that kept him on the IL. So all of a sudden, last year, never heard about his calf, never heard about his hamstring, never heard about the nerve issue he complained about in 2021. That was an issue that they said will always be an issue for Brandon Nimo. Nimo said it himself. Now in 2022, his contract year, all of a sudden the nerve issue miraculously went away, right? All of a sudden. And now his hamstring, non-existent. It makes no sense. You know why? Because the same reason why Aaron Judge stayed healthy is the same reason why Brandon Nimo was healthy. Because they were in contract years. And it looks really bad when a player who comes out of games because of certain nagging injuries, when it's not a contract year and it doesn't matter, and now you have to think, well, he's just going to be healthy because he was last year. If you don't think if Aaron Judge or Jacob deGrom can stay healthy, why do you think Brandon Nimo can when it shows in their career? In Brandon Nimo's career, just look at the last 6 years. Look at it. No, Muttley, he can have a great year, but Brandon Nimo didn't have a great year. Do you know why he had a career year? Because he played the most amount of games in his career. That's why. You can't have a career year when you play 90 games. And by the way, that's the most games he played prior to last year. Why do you just assume Nimo's not going to stay healthy, but Jacob deGrom is? When Jacob deGrom and Brandon Nimo, if you look at their careers, deGrom has been much more healthy than Brandon Nimo. Again, this is not saying I don't want Brandon Nimo, but if it stops you from getting a big bat, like Ken is saying, I can assure you, if Brandon Nimo signs with the New York Mets, you ain't getting another big bat. I'm telling you that right now. You'll get a DH that might hit for average, like a Jose Abreu. You are not getting Trey Turner. You're not getting any other big free agent that's available for position-wise. Yeah, but muted. You know what? But he came back, right? How many games did he play this year? You want to check? We'll check right now. Let's see. Let's find out. Right? Let's go look at it. That's the whole problem. Let's look. Let's look. All right, let's see. Oh, and by the way, Trey Turner had more home runs, 21 home runs, batted .298 and 652 at-bats with a 4.9 WAR, right? I don't care about WAR, but let's just say, all right? All right, let's see. All righty, so 2018 played 162 games. 2019 played 122 games. 59 games in the pandemic year, which was 60 games, so he played almost every game. 2021 in total for Washington and the Dodgers, 148 games. 2022, 160 games. Brandon Nimo. Let's look at Brandon Nimo, right? Since everybody just loves Brandon Nimo. All right, let's go check. Let's see. Brandon Nimo. All right, here we go. Let's go all the way down. All right, so we came up with the Mets in 2016. I'm not going to look at that because that was a while ago. So 2018 was the first real year he was a starter. 140 games. Great. Pretty good. I'll take that. 2019, 69 games. Played nearly a full season in 2020. 2021, 92 games. So we got 69 games, 55 games in the pandemic year, which is almost a full year, 92 games, and then all of a sudden, 2022 contract year, 151 games. Come on. Well, Motley, you don't agree with me, and you can't complain about Jacob deGrom being injured often when he's not been more injured more often than Brandon Nimo. I would take a flyer on Bellinger, but I wouldn't make him his main a big part of this lineup, to be honest with you. Again, 2019 he broke his wrist, which is called injury, right? Right? Jacob deGrom didn't poke himself in the back and say, "Oh, I'm injured," right? He broke something. But he broke his wrist, right? All right, that's an injury. But it kept him out. That's an injury. So what happened in 2021? That hand was fine, right? Why did he only play 92 games? Right? It was his neck and it was his nerve in his hand. But it mattered. But it doesn't matter. Again, Jacob deGrom had a bone injury this year from throwing, right? In the scapula. But I wasn't talking about that. But in 2021 was nagging injuries, right? What happened the other years, right? What happened the other years, right? And this goes for Jacob deGrom too with the nagging injuries. He's not getting away with it either. But he's played more as a pitcher than Brandon Nimo. You can't look at the pitcher's amount of games and look at Brandon Nimo's amount of games and think that makes sense, right? And we'll look at Jacob deGrom. We'll look at the years. We'll look at it, right? We can go all over it. All right, Jacob deGrom. In 2020, pitched 12 games. That's basically a full year, right? Okay, fine. So 2016, 24 starts, right? That was right after the 2015 season, 24 starts, right? He got hurt at the end of the year. Okay, 2017, full season, 31 starts. 2018, All-Star, Cy Young, 32 starts. 2019, 32 starts. 2021, half a season, first half, 15 starts, right? Missed the second half and the first half of this year, 11 starts. So only 2022 and 2021, which is basically one full year, the second half of 2021 and the first half of 2022, he's hurt. He was injured. That's it. And the end of the year of 2016, but he pitched 24 games, which is nearly a full season, right? So every year, 30 starts, 31 starts, 32 starts, and he's often injured. He's not. Well, Muttley, congratulations if you get blisters. Come on, man. You gotta lose some lubrication, man. Come on. Get some lotion, some KY. Let's go, man. Come on. So listen, guys. I don't want to say, look, if Brandon Nimo is the guy the Mets want and they believe he's going to stay healthy, I'm all in for it. Again, I don't think he's worth $150 million, but it's not my money. But again, if this stops the Mets from getting a guy like Trey Turner or anything else that can provide us a big bat and protection for Pete Alonso, it's going to be a big problem. You know what I'm saying? And that's the issue that I'm worried about. I think the Mets are going to sign Brandon Nimo and maybe get a guy like Jose Abreu at DH. Again, not a bad option, but is that the big bat this lineup needs? The dynamic player that this team needs? So you basically bring him back the same lineup with the possibility of Alvarez taking McCann's spot and Beatty taking Escobar's spot. And we expect the same results, which wasn't good last year for what we were expecting going into the last couple of months of the season. That's what I worry about. Again, if you tell me that Nimo gets signed and the Mets still want Trey Turner and they get him, hey, listen, now we're talking, right? But what do you do with Brandon Nimo? Do you bat him ninth and put Trey Turner first with Marte second? That sounds like a fun idea, right? But again, Nimo can't be the only big signing offensive-wise because that's going to be a huge problem. And think of that. If that's the only signing the Mets make that is worth making this lineup better, we're in trouble. But hey, listen, I can get on board with getting Brandon Nimo if there's more coming down the road with offensive help. And if that happens, I think Nimo will be worth it. Nimo by himself is scary. You know, if the Mets sign Senga, DeGrom, and Nimo, and that's their big offseason, well, I mean, we're basically running the back, guys. And again, you can't laugh at the Yankees running it back when the results are basically the same and it doesn't make them better, and expect the Mets to get better and expect different results. Because that's not just happen. It's just not it. I'm sorry, guys. It sucks. But I think it's looking more and more like the Mets are going to try to keep Brandon Nimo, and it's probably going to cost them. Okay, but do more. You have to do more. You got to make this lineup more electric, more dynamic. Because bringing back the same team, if you bring a Josh Bell or a Jose Abreu for the DH spot, I don't know. Is that enough? Is that going to make me excited to see Josh Bell or Jose Abreu protecting Pete Alonso? It's not going to excite me at all. And that's what I worry about with the Brandon Nimo signing. Because the Mets got to do a lot more, right? If you sign Jacob deGrom, you sign Senga, all right, you got most of your rotation ready to go. Well, now you got to get this whole bullpen situated. That's going to cost you a couple of $1 million. You know, you already gave $100 million to your closer. So now you got to probably get a really good lefty in the bullpen. You got to get a couple of arms to replace Lugo and Ottavino. And oh, by the way, Trevor May as well. That's where I'm having a problem, because I think it's either Trey Turner or Brandon Nimo. That's why it concerns me that the Mets might pick Brandon Nimo over Trey Turner when they should get both. And I think it's either or, and that's the problem that I worry about. Now, if you tell me that the Mets decide to go after Trey Turner and Brandon Nimo and bring in Jose Abreu, now, okay, I feel better about this lineup. But that's the problem. I don't think it's Nimo and Trey Turner. I think it's one or the other, because I think they're looking at it as, okay, we can put Marte in center field if you get Trey Turner. You can put McNeil to right field and leave Canner in left field. I don't think they're looking at it as, okay, Trey Turner can play second base and Nimo is back in center field. I don't think they look at it that way. I think they look at it as, if we sign Trey Turner, we have options now to go out and get somebody else that can be a versatile player, that can be a utility player, that if Turner plays center field, all right, cool. And then if you want to give Turner a couple of days off in the outfield, you could put Marte to center field, McNeil to second. To right field, and Trey Turner to second. Okay, I don't think it is. I just think the fact that they got to do so much. And look, if you sign Jacob deGrom and Senga, you sign Diaz, Senga, and deGrom for a total for around $350, $370 million, because Senga could get 4 years, $70 million. So $370 million from 2 starters and a closer. Now you got to get rid of you got to figure out your bullpen, still sign a center fielder, and possibly sign Trey Turner. But we'll see. We'll see. Again, if it's Trey Turner and Brandon Nimo, now we're talking. But if it's one or the other, it's no contest. You have to go after Trey Turner. You can't pick Brandon Nimo over Trey Turner and say that's a successful offseason for the big name that you bring back to your team. Listen, I want the payroll to be $350 million. And Nimo and deGrom is not going to cut it for me. Even if you sign Jose Abreu or Josh Bell, which is not going to do enough for this lineup. Because you're basically having the same lineup. Jose Abreu is a 300 hitter. So you're bringing in another guy who doesn't hit a lot of home runs, but hits for average. It's the same problem that we're going to have. So now we need Pete Alonso to hit another 40 home runs and pray that somebody figures it out. And we need Lindor, who finally played the way we all thought he would. We need him to hit another 25 home runs. So that's our power yet again. I don't trust that. At least with Trey Turner, I know he has 20 to 25 home runs as a leadoff hitter. Brandon Nimo is lucky to hit 15 to, I would say, 17 the most. Tyler, I don't think he's going to get that much. I think there was a couple of reports where the Rangers, who I think should go after Senga, doesn't want to give him a 4th year. That's what the beat reporter said for the Texas Rangers. I think it's Chris Ranzowski, I think his name is. I was, because I try to follow beat reporters for other teams that are interested in players the Mets are, and he said that the Rangers are not willing to give a 4th year. The Padres might. That might be interesting. But $100 million is probably not going to happen. What can I guarantee, Muttley? Yeah, but guess what, Muttley? Turner hasn't had a bad year at any point of his career. So why do we just expect him to continue not to have good years going into his prime? But he has hit that many home runs. That's the point. Nimo, in the 2 years he's been healthy, hasn't hit more than 17 home runs. Turner has. Turner has averaged between 18 to 25 home runs every year. As a leadoff hitter, by the way. And again, when Turner doesn't hit home runs, he still hits 290. Brandon Nimo doesn't. That's the problem that we keep on talking about. You can't pick Nimo over Turner and think that's not going to be a better choice. Now, both of them together, that's fun. That makes everybody happy. But I have a bad feeling that it's either going to be between Turner and Nimo. Why not? He's played for 2 teams already, and he's been very, very good exactly what they wanted each time. He was dynamic with the Nationals. And remember, the Dodgers traded for Trey Turner when they still had Corey Seager. You know why they said it? Because he's a dynamic player. He's a great player. He is. Well, he's projected to get $250 million. Again, will he get that? I don't know. But he is the best shortstop on the market with other shortstops that are nearly the same level and a little bit below. But he's the best shortstop on the market. I can assure you, if there was any really good center fielders on the market this year that was just as good as Brandon Nimo, I don't think Nimo will be getting the money he's going to be getting. Like I said, Brandon Nimo and Trey Turner are the same age. Trey Turner has been healthy more of his career than Brandon Nimo. Is Brandon Nimo good enough to give $150 million and not get Trey Turner? Or get Trey Turner at $250 million where you know he's been consistently better than Brandon Nimo offensively throughout the years? Well, Tyler, I think that's very likely, to be honest with you. But you also need pitching as well. But again, Muttley, when you're the only center fielder, of course the market's going to dictate to you. But the whole point is, Nimo is only getting $150 million because there's a lot of teams after him because there's no free center fielders out there. You keep missing a point, is that Nimo is not a $150 million player. His stats tell you he's not a $150 million player. Well, for what Nimo is, yes. But if you're telling me it's either Trey Turner or Brandon Nimo, it's no contest. I want Trey Turner. That's it. The whole point is, when you're the only center fielder out there where multiple teams wanting a center fielder, of course the price is going to jump up. Right? Aaron Judge isn't the only corner outfielder out there, but Aaron Judge is the best. Well, no, because if he's still going to hit 260 and hit 17 home runs and play decent defense but can't throw out any runners, he's not worth $150 million. Again, you're going to be one of those guys in the month of June, if the Mets sign Brandon Nimo, when he's cold and can't hit the ball at all and can't get on base and is striking out at a rapid pace, you're going to complain about his contract. Again, Hayward's the perfect contract. Again, thank you for bringing that up. Hayward put up better numbers than Brandon Nimo, but was often injured as well. Right? Jason Hayward, right? Played for the Braves, killed the Mets, often injured, but a really good player. Had better numbers than Brandon Nimo. Look what Hayward got contract-wise, and that's what you're going to give Brandon Nimo. Now, I think Brandon Nimo can stay. I don't think he's going to fall off the face of the earth like Hayward did. But, again, we were talking about this during the season. Ken talked about it. We all talked about it. When we said a contract offer for Brandon Nimo, we were saying, I'll go about $105, $110 million. I think Brandon Nimo is worth that. But another $40 million because you might need him, or that's the player you want over everybody else, that could be a possibility. So you're going to give him $150 million because the market says so. But that doesn't mean his stats show that. How does that make sense? But Mully, I am giving him a chance, but I'm not giving him $150 million because he's never going to be worth that as a player. Not what the market dictates, right? The market dictated Lindor to get $300 million. Is Lindor worth that contract? Probably not. But people assume he got that contract, so now we have to look into that as well, right? Everybody's like, oh, Lindor didn't live up to his contract. Lindor hitting 25 home runs and 100 RBIs that's not worth $325 million. But the market set that. But Muttley, you're still not getting the point. The whole point is, if the Mets determine that they want Brandon Nimo over Trey Turner, and you don't get both of them, then Nimo is worth not getting Trey Turner and giving him $150 million for Brandon Nimo. But yes, but okay, but the market determined that. But look what the shortstop got the same year. All those shortstops were free agents. Nobody got even close to that. So the market was wrong for shortstops. So Steve Cohen overpaid when he didn't have to. You see the point? So the market was wrong, which the market will be wrong for Brandon Nimo. Right? You can't say Brandon Nimo offensively or as a whole player is worth $150 million. If you believe that, pay him $150 million. Again, do you believe that a guy like, let's say, Carlos Rodon, right? He's looking to get close to $30 million. Is he worth that as a pitcher? But the market is what it is because of what is available. Again, Brandon Nimo is not worth $150 million. So no matter what team pays him, Nimo's career, right? If you look at only Nimo as a whole, don't look at the market because the market is stupid. The market projects. Remember, there was projections that Nimo would get $105 to $110 million. Right? Was Chris Bryant worth all that money that the Rockies gave him? Not even close. Even though I was one that wanted Chris Bryant. But the market said Chris Bryant should get that money. Why? Because according to everybody, Chris Bryant was the best third baseman on the market. But he came nowhere close earning that money. Can Brandon Nimo get better? I don't think he can get better defensively. The arm is not miraculously going to come. Right? Nimo is what he is as a defensive player. He plays deep, which hurts him because he has a bad arm. But Muttley, what gives you the idea that Nimo can hit 30 points higher when he's never done that in his career? Nimo is not a 300 hitter. What are you not understanding? Again, what language do you speak? Nimo is not a 300 hitter. He'll never be a 300 hitter. Right? These guys just don't miraculously hit 300. All right? It just don't happen. I just don't understand why you're so obsessed with Nimo hitting 300. He's never hit that in his career, even when he was healthy. Muttley, I do know that. He's been in the year 6. He's been in Major League Baseball for 6 years. Last year was his highest average ever in his career, 274. That's 30 points below 300. Why is Nimo all of a sudden going to hit 30 points higher? I'm sorry, it's not happening. Trey Turner is a 290 hitter in his career. But again, you're not hearing what I'm saying. If Muttley, if the Mets sign Nimo and it takes you out of the running for Trey Turner and the Mets decide to get Jose Abreu or Josh Bell for the DH, that's basically the same lineup you had last year, and you're happy with that? I just don't know. I just don't get it. Like, I just don't understand why. Here's the problem with people that love Brandon Nimo. You fall in love with your own players. Turner could end up being a bust. How does that make sense? He's had a better career than Brandon Nimo. If that's the case, then Brandon Nimo is going to be a bust. Because you can't look at past statistics and say Nimo is going to be a better player than Trey Turner. Again, you fall in love with Brandon Nimo because he came up as a Met. If Trey Turner came up as a Met, you'll love him too. But because you don't watch Trey Turner every day, you just believe Trey Turner is going to be a bust. But Muttley, you're saying that Nimo is going to be a 300 hitter. You can't guarantee that. But I can tell you based on years that you have to look at that Brandon Nimo is not better than Trey Turner. And if you want Brandon Nimo over Trey Turner, you're not paying attention. You don't really understand baseball then. Well, that's the other thing. But no, it cannot be. That's where you're wrong. Listen, I'm not saying I don't like Nimo. But if you're going to choose between Turner or Nimo, if you choose Nimo, all you're doing is loving the player that came up as a Met. That's it. Because he's not better than Trey Turner. He's never going to hit 300. He's never done that in his career. And why do you just assume that he's going to hit 300 when he never done that in his career? Yeah, I agree. But if Cohen doesn't sign Trey Turner with Brandon Nimo, you're bringing back the same team. Because tell me another player that's available on the free agent market that the Mets can get that can make this team better. And don't tell me Aaron Judge, because it's not going to happen. It just doesn't make sense to me. Because Muttley, in his career, he has been. Nimo has not, except for 1 year. I'm sorry, you can't choose. Turner, in his career, has been great. Nimo has not, except for 1 year, and it was in his contract year. At least Turner has a track record. That's the whole point. Turner is a difference maker. I can assure you, if you put Trey Turner in this lineup and take Nimo out of it, it's going to be better. It's not the whole point of Brandon Nimo shouldn't be on this Mets team. He should be, but Turner should be as well. No, that's called making your team better, Muttley. I agree, Hector. That's what I'm trying to explain, but Muttley doesn't want to get it. I'm sorry. You're looking at the market and you're not looking at the player. Turner has been good every year of his career. Nimo, 1 good year last year. And that's where you're going on. But you don't look at, you can't, so you're going to totally ignore Nimo's last 5 seasons, but you're going to ignore what Turner did for the last 5 seasons, including this year, by the way. Muttley, there's about 4 or 5 teams that are in on Nimo. And the team that loses out on Aaron Judge is going to go even harder after Brandon Nimo because there's not a lot of outfielders available. Muttley, he's going to get a lot of offers. That's why they're projecting him. And there's a possibility he could get more than $150 million if there's more teams after him. Like, say if the Yankees sign Aaron Judge. Well, now the Giants, who were willing to give $350 million to Aaron Judge, but he went back to the Yankees, you don't think they're going to pivot to Brandon Nimo, the next best outfielder out there? Of course they are. That's the problem. So now you're going to run up the price on Brandon Nimo when he's not worth that money as a player, not the market. The market means nothing to me. Because if you're going to give $150 million to $160 million for Nimo, and then look at his career numbers where he's nowhere close to that number, like George Springer has better numbers than Brandon Nimo, but Brandon Nimo is going to get a similar contract to George Springer? That makes no sense. Because George Springer is a better player than Brandon Nimo all around. And that's the whole point. Because Brandon Nimo is the only free agent center fielder available, yes, the market dictates that. But just because he gets that doesn't mean he's worth that money as a player, statistically. Because when he bats .260, hits 15 home runs, doesn't score 100 runs, can't steal any bases, is a average to good center fielder who can't throw who has no arm, who can't come in on balls, you're going to be complaining about that contract. Well, Ken, that's the point. If there was one team one team that was in on Brandon Nimo, Nimo will be lucky to get $100 million. But because teams are fighting over each other for Brandon Nimo, because everybody needs a center fielder, he's going to get that much. And as a player, if he's not worth that much, as what statistics say as an overall player, you're going to get you're not going to get what you paid for. And now you're gonna talk like, I'm not saying Brandon Nimo is Jason Bay. That's a stupid comment. But if you think Brandon Nimo is worth $150 million because only the market says so, but don't look at the statistics that say he's not worth that much, then whatever team gets him for $150 million are going to be crying about that contract when he only bats .260, which is his career average. But solid is not worth $150 million. He's been solid for 1 year. All right, out of 6. Let's not act like he played 3 years of solid baseball, because he hasn't played. Right? Michael Conforto was your center fielder when Nimo was hurt. But again, you keep on going back to the market. The market doesn't make the player better. That's the whole thing. Aaron Judge is not going to be worth $350 million in 3 years. Lindor is never going to be worth $325 million. That's the problem that you're not understanding. Well, you know what? A good person doesn't make me happy when he strikes out with men on in the month of September. I agree. But Steve, that doesn't mean he's worth $150 million. Well, Ken, that's the other thing. You know, and this is why Brandon Nimo scares me. Do I think Brandon Nimo will be a good player the rest of his career? Yeah. Yeah, but will he ever be worth $150 million? No. And that's the other issue. Like if the Colorado Rockies sign Brandon Nimo, people are going to be like, uh-oh, look, he's hitting 300. He's hitting 25 home runs. Well, let's be honest. It's one of the biggest outfields in Major League Baseball. So his average is going to go up. Every player that goes there, average goes up at least 10 points. So he might bat 290 or 285. He'll probably hit 10 more home runs because of the thin air. Nimo is a solid player. But if the Mets sign Nimo for $150 million, I wouldn't necessarily be happy with that amount. But if the Mets do something else big, like getting Trey Turner, well, then who cares? But again, I guarantee you it's going to be between Turner or Nimo. And if you have to make that decision and you choose Nimo, I think it's the wrong decision. But it's not quitting on a guy, Muttley. If the Mets think Trey Turner is the better player, which basically sits in the same area of Brandon Nimo, which both of them are leadoff hitters, nobody is going to tell you that Nimo is a better leadoff hitter than Trey Turner, because you're wrong. Well, Steve, that's the whole point. If it's both, I don't care if you give them both $500 million. I don't care. It's not my money. But if it's only Nimo and it stops you from getting another dynamic player that can help this offense, then you bring him back the same team minus a DH guy, maybe like Josh Bell or Jose Abreu. Well, Muttley, the Mets shouldn't make that happen then. That's the whole point. If the Mets sign Brandon Nimo and let Trey Turner go to the Phillies, that's a huge problem. Yeah, Steve, I'm not, because I think the Mets are going to sign DeGrom, and I think they're going to go after Senga, and I think the pitching is going to be fine, and they're going to get bullpen guys. I think we worry too much about pitching when what the Mets' biggest flaw was last year was not hitting in the month of September. That's why they lost the division. That's why they lost the wild card. They couldn't hit. Yeah, they couldn't pitch, but you're expecting pitchers. You know, I don't expect Scherzer to give up 6 runs again like that. But let's be honest. I think Steve Cohen is going to go absolutely crazy. I do think Brandon Nimmo is going to come back, but I also think he's going to sign Trey Turner. But the Mets can't let Trey Turner go to the Phillies and sign Brandon Nimmo and then pat themselves on the back that they signed Brandon Nimmo for a huge contract that he shouldn't have got. And then sign Jose Abreu or Josh Bell for DH and be excited about that. I'm not going to be excited about that because if that's what happens, it's a disappointing offseason. And I don't care if the Mets sign Jacob deGrom and Carlos Rodon. Wonderful. The rotation's set. Now we're going to have the same problem we had last year, which was not having enough power. We don't have enough dynamic in this lineup. With that said, guys, it was a fun conversation. Let's hope by the end of the week, free agency starts picking up. Again, I still think Senga is going to sign by this week. Look for Jacob deGrom's market to develop, which is not going to be a lot of teams. We shall see. But let's hope the Mets make bigger decisions. And it has to be more dynamic than just Brandon Nimmo and a DH bat like Jose Abreu or Josh Bell. If there's more than Brandon Nimmo, let's make it happen. But if it's only Brandon Nimmo, congratulations. You got the same guy you're going to be getting for the next 5 to 6 years that is not a dynamic player. He's a good player, but not dynamic. This team needs a dynamic player on this team. If you want to add Brandon Nimmo with that, perfect. But we don't know. I think the Mets payroll is going to be around $350 million. If you look at it, they got about $75 to $80 million to work with. That's more than enough to add deGrom, Senga, Nimmo, and Turner, and that's around, give or take, a little more than $350 million. Let's hope that happens, guys. Once again, guys, everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Yeah, Muttley. Again, Muttley, you just made my point. So you're going to sign Brandon Nimmo and platoon Vogie and another DH. What type of offense is that? The same one you get last year. So with that said, guys, everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Stuff your face. Have some fun. Enjoy the football games. Hopefully we get some news over the next couple of days. Again, with free agency, let's hope we get some good news for our Mets so we can get excited about the season. Everybody have a good night. Happy Thanksgiving. As always, let's go Mets. Let's hope free agency starts to pick up really, really soon. Everybody have a good night. See you guys next time. Giants over Dallas. Danny Dimes is going to be Danny Pennies. Have a good night, guys.